It's my great pleasure to introduce Gary Jones, the director of many cool movies, but in particular, we're talking about Escape from Cell Block 13 today. Hi, Gary. Hello from Australia.
Hi. Hey, good to meet you, and it's great to be in Australia. It's Escape from Death Block.
Oh,
13.
Death Block, of course, Death Block 13. My mistake.
You know what's interesting is like I knew that was going to happen, and I get it like all the time. And there was a movie I saw a few years back. One of my influences for this was Brawl in Cell Block 99. That's Craig Zeller's movie, you know?
Yes, yeah.
So I liked that a lot. I thought, wow, he got it, you know, he got that era. And it was one of the inspirations for me to continue with this one. So it's okay. No worries, dude.
Look, it's pretty rare I make a mistake, but in that case, I'm very sorry. I was watching it thinking, why did you change it to Death Block? Because maybe you just didn't want to get it mistaken with other cell block action movies.
No, you know, part of it was initially I was like, okay, Cell Block 13. And, you know, because that rolls off the tongue. That's what people think.
Yeah.
But I was thinking that because this has happened on a couple of my other movies, you know, like I name the movie, then I put it out there, get distribution, and the name changes. So I'm like, well, what will they change? You know, and I'm thinking, what's a simple name? If we end up losing everything, Death Block 13, because it tells you something about everything, right? It's a cell block, but it's a death block. You go in there, you don't come out alive.
Yeah, right.
So, and of course, I think in England, they're going to call it just Death Block 13. So it's like, you know, it's okay. So yeah, Death Block just had more of a ring, you know, just had more of a grabbing thing to it. And I thought if I shortened it for distribution, we'd go to Death Block 13. And Cell Block 13, if it just went out like that, didn't seem too passive.
No, that's true. And you're just saying a second ago, it just made me think, do many of your movies get changed, the titles, as you go? Is that a common thing?
It's happened to me. You know, here's what's so odd. It's only happened to me because I've done studio movies where I was a hired director.
Yeah.
Those titles never changed. But when I did my own movies, my own independent productions, every single one of them changed. And like I did my first movie, which everybody knows it as Mosquito.
That's right.
Giant 6-foot killer mosquitoes, right? Well, when I started shooting the movie, when I wrote the script, it was called Skeeters, because that was kind of our acronym we set up in Michigan, you know, in the US is Skeeters are getting us, you know? Well, while I was doing the movie, I saw that there was another movie in LA, in Hollywood being shot called Skeeter.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, of course they have a budget, they have a studio, they're going to come out before me. So I changed the name to Blood Fever, just because I thought nobody will take that. And I thought I would change it later anyway. So we shot the movie as Blood Fever. And then when the movie was done, I wanted to go out for distribution. And I was trying to think of something really that didn't cheapen it. You know, blood seemed to cheapen it.
Yeah, fair enough.
So I always loved the movie Nightwing with the bats. Yeah. And I thought, so it was Blood Swarm, Night Swarm. I thought Night Swarm, that sounds big. It doesn't sound cheap. So we call it Night Swarm. We go out, show it everywhere. The distributor buys it and they go, okay, we're going to change it to Mosquito. And I went, what? Well, they were right, because you want an iconic, simple name. And everybody in the world knows what a mosquito is. Mm. So they're absolutely, you know, I was disappointed at first. I'm like, oh man, it sounds cheap, but they were right. And then I did another movie called Axe Giant, The Wrath of Paul Bunyan, which is the Paul Bunyan, Babe the Blue Ox legend here in America.
Right.
Well, we shot the movie. Jeff Miller and I, you know, who did the movie, my producing and writing partner on it, our title was called Bunyan. You know, it's Paul Bunyan. So we thought Bunyan sounded creepy and weird. Mm. So we shot it as Bunyan. When we sold it to the Sci-Fi Channel, they said, okay, we're going to change the name because we have 3 seconds to sell this on TV to our audience, right? Because the ads go out like for 6 seconds and it's over. And they we can't sell people on Bunyan and not get them to think about a bunion on your foot.
Exactly.
So they said, give us a title or we'll come up with one. So we're like, God damn, you know, we batted a whole bunch around and finally, you know, we gave them like 6 titles. The one I hated was Axe Giant. That was like the one at the bottom of the list.
Right.
I had Wrath of the Gargantuan. I mean, I had all these great titles. So they said Axe Giant. That's what they picked. So when they put it out, yeah, and it stuck. We put it out as Axe Giant. which again is good because it's simple. But when we came out on DVD in the United States, we retitled Axe Giant, The Wrath of Paul Bunyan, because we wanted the Paul Bunyan legend to get known.
Right.
You know, so you want that, we wanted that publicity part. So it's Axe Giant, The Wrath of Paul Bunyan.
Now, I was going to leave Mosquito to the end, but seeing you brought it up, I'll ask. Have you got any the clapper board from Mosquito or any memorabilia from that movie?
I do. Give me 1 second. All right. So I really wasn't prepared for this, but since you asked.
I remember while you're looking, I remember hiring it on VHS as a kid in Australia at a video shop. So there you go. I contributed to it. I contributed to the.
Thank you. You're that guy in Australia that bought it. No, actually, I was in when it came out. I was in New Zealand working on Xena Warrior Princess.
Oh yeah, right, yeah.
And I went to the video stores, and it was in Australia, New Zealand at the same time. But this is one of the. This is us. We did practical effects in the movie with giant 6-foot rubber mosquitoes, mechanical, awesome. But we did some stop motion shots too. And so this is one of the stop motion puppets from it.
Oh, that's incredible. That looks like it's brand new. It's been kept very well.
Yeah, it's kind of falling apart, you know, the rubber's peeling on it, but
okay.
So it's all posable. So we had 2 of these in the movie that I wanted to put stop motion in because I was a big fan. I'm still a fan. One of my heroes that got me into movies was Ray Harryhausen, right?
Yeah, of course.
And King Kong, Mighty Joe Young, Ray, you know, Willis O'Brien, Phil Tippett, all those guys, you know, Pete Peterson. I just loved all those monster movies, you know, and they would have that stop motion creature, and there was magic, you know, it was magical. So I wanted to have some we used every effect in Mosquito, but I wanted to have some stop motion, and we built some puppets, and a really good animator, Paul Gesso, did the animation for us. And so I'm happy to say we have everything in Mosquito, and even 3 computer generated shots, which were not the best shots of the movie. So very crude at the time, but
I hope it gets revisited and you get a chance to bring it out on Blu-ray or something sometime, because I think there'll be people out there who would appreciate that.
Well, we got, and I don't know if it ended up in Australia yet, but are you familiar with a company called Synapses? Film?
I have heard of them. Yes. Did they bring it out? Did they?
They did. We did the full restoration. We have an hour and a half. We have an hour and a half making of. So it's longer than the movie, and it's all the behind the scenes stuff where you see us building the bugs. You see me and the crew figuring out how to make a movie. But yeah, it's out and it's on Blu-ray. I don't know if it's in Australia yet, but I'll check. But give me your information, and I'll get you a Blu-ray.
Oh, mate, I'm a fan of physical media, but sometimes it can be quite hard to generate them down to Australia, but I do it when I can. Vinegar Syndrome are also very good.
Right. Yeah, and I think the Blu-ray did get to a couple of foreign markets, but I don't know if it got down there. Because okay. Are you on, is it PAL? I can't remember. There's the conversion thing.
Yeah, Region 4, PAL. That's correct.
Region 4, okay. Yeah, that's probably why it's not down there, but we'll figure it out.
Thanks, mate. I appreciate that.
Because I think you'll enjoy the making of.
Well, I've always been a fan of the movie, so I had to rush to one of my last questions, but I'll get back on Death Block.
Sure.
Was there a director cameo in it that I might have missed? Are you in it?
In Death Block?
Yes.
I'm smoking a cigar.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm in it.
I must have missed it.
I'm in the yard, in the prison yard, when they go out to do the work.
Okay.
They're walking out with a guard walks up with a cigar and looks at them. You can't really. It's hard to tell because you're looking. You know, I'm wearing a hat and everything. I tried to do the Hitchcock, you know, and I succeeded with the stomach. That part I got right. So.
Did you come in under budget?
On Death Block?
Yeah.
No, on Death Block, it started out, initially the project was a bit smaller, but once I got going into it and we got into the prison, we used the Shawshank prison for our prison.
Right.
And once I got there and the film is also, I have a lot of wrestlers. So the inmates are all professional wrestlers. So I got performances and stunts all in one. So it really helped with the budget. But once I got in there and started shooting, it was sort of like, it was that moment where I went, you know, this is too good to just do this and leave, you know? I said, I've got to extend the riot down here. I've got to use this. I've got to use that. So while I was in the middle of, you know, starting the first leg of the shoot, because we did it in stages,
Yeah.
it kind of got bigger and bigger. So it budget wise doubled. But what happened was I think the film went from a 10 to a 50. You know, it just, I got so much more. And, you know, it's like once you kind of cross a line, you're like, okay, are the audiences satisfied? And went, you know what? I got to give them 45 minutes of action in the end of this movie. It's just got to rock.
Oh, yeah.
And so I kind of pulled out all the stops, and we had the unfortunate problem, like everybody did with 2020 with COVID. And that sort of shut some things down. But what I did was I said, okay, there's no work. There's no money coming in. I've got the whole year. And I went, you know what? I'm going to embellish the visual effects. I'm going to shoot green screen elements. I'm going to keep going and push this movie over the top. And so I worked all through 2020, doing visual effects and little bits and pieces and really just honing it in and getting the post done on the movie. So it was a curse, but a blessing. I mean, it helped me get through everything. Or I would have had to be done, you know, 6-7 months earlier. The film would be small.
Right. Now, I was going to ask you, was it a COVID production, and did that restrict you as a director? Or because you could take longer, it helped?
No, you know, actually what happened is we started in 2018.
Wow, okay.
That was the first start. And I broke the shoot up in 2 parts because of financing. I only had enough to go so far.
Yeah.
So we shot the movie, the first leg of it. And then I went off to produce a Western for a friend of mine. And I made a deal. I said, here's how much money I need to produce the movie. He said, no problem. I went up and produced it in about a month and a half, took all that money back, and then I was ready for the next leg of the shoot.
Yeah.
So me and my wife financed probably 85 to 90% of the movie. So it was in 2 legs. And then in 2019, we were finishing up the rest of the shoots in the green screen. And again, money was tight. So I would go off and do work, and I would, you know, I have a visual effects company. So I was doing work for all these TV shows and Hallmark Channel and all these Christmas movies. And, you know, I do 4, 6, 8 weeks of work, and then I take all the money and I bring people back and I do more movies. So I was constantly working and bringing money into my movie. So I would have been done right at the end of 2019 or 2020. But, you know, when the COVID thing came in and then everything shut down and, you know, no work, no money, no nothing, I'm like, you need money to finish.
Oh,
so
yeah.
We limped through 2020 and got to the end. And so in a way, it worked for me. I had more time to get the effects right, to do the, you know, the stuff I wanted. So I turned, you know, you turn a disaster, you know, you take a problem and you try to figure out how to make it. And it helped me get the movie, to make the movie a little bigger. But it delayed the release, obviously, into 2021, which I didn't want to do. But we were hoping to be finished with the movie right in the middle of COVID. We thought, great, we get this done, Hollywood shut down. Theaters need movies. Yes. So I'm like, we got to get done in 2020 so we can get this out there and get the theaters, you know. But anyway, it is what it is. And then when we came out, we had a little window, but of course, when we came out, all the Hollywood movies started coming out too. So we had a little competition the last month or so.
Well, look, I'm supporting it for sure, because I think it would have got mixed in the mix with all those Hollywood movies, but it still stands out on its own anyway as an action movie. And you were talking about special effects. It didn't look to me as if there was a lot of special effects. It looked like a hard-nosed, brutal action movie. So they might have been minimal, or I just didn't notice them. So that's very good.
Good. Thank you. Thank you. Well, there's a little bit of gun action in the movie.
Yes, that's true. That's been tragic lately.
Yeah, it's horrible situation. But you know, it's the thing about it's wake-up calls. You know, we always need wake-up calls, because we are out there making these movies, and you know, we have medics on the set, and you do everything you can do to save, but accidents do happen, you know. And it's just, we got to be vigilant about that kind of stuff, you know, because it's not worth, there's no movie worth that, you know.
No.
And so it's a tragic accident, you know, and the victims, and then, you know, and the people that are, you know, were part of it. I mean, it's all going through it, but I think there'll be some changes, things will come out, but you know, it's like the pandemic, COVID gave the world a wake up call about stuff.
Oh yeah.
Like, hey, what's really important? Health, right? Yes, everything else is great. If you don't have your health,
yeah,
you got nothing. And so we're getting wake up calls a lot. Somebody's telling us, hey, pay attention because, you know, you got it good. Don't forget the basics. So
I got to say, what is it, in your opinion, makes a good action movie? I mean, some of them are timeless. Those 80s and 90s action movies, they're timeless. What makes a good action movie, in your opinion?
Well, for me, you know, and my movie Escape from Death Block 13 is an homage back to the 70s movies, which is where I grew up. I loved them all, you know.
Yeah.
You know, Mr. Majestic and The Getaway and Emperor of the North Pole, The Longest Yard. I mean, the list goes on. Those movies were classic, I felt, because they had name that those actors were great. We don't have those actors anymore.
No.
They were iconic. The movies were about a code of honor. They were simple. It wasn't a technology thing.
No.
Which we get lost in today. But I think what makes a good action movie is the simplicity of how everything can spin out of control because of one little thing, which, you know, and it happens in real life too. But I think you've got to have, first and foremost, you've got to have the lead actors, your stars. You've got to have somebody that's got so much charisma that they don't even have to talk. You know, you used to see Robert Mitchum, you know, or Charles Bronson or Steve McQueen.
Yeah.
They just would do a look and you're there, right? I mean, they had you. So it's the charisma of those stars. The bad guys have to be really, really bad, and we have to like them bad, you know, and we want to see them pay the price, you know, and a simple story that you can hold on to and go, wow, okay. And then, and I always feel like the first 10, 15 minutes of an action movie, most movies, but an action movie, you have to grab the audience in the first 10, 15 minutes.
For sure.
Set them up. But then, and, you know, and back in the day, there was action throughout the movies, but rarely was it 30, 40 minutes of action. Well, I think today, for me, because of the way we watch movies and our entertainment is, I feel like if you're sitting for an hour, hour and a half, you better give that audience 30 to 40 minutes of nonstop action, because it's the residual effect when I leave a movie. How I feel when I leave that movie decides whether I'm going to tell people to watch it.
Yeah.
That's it. So I try to put 40 minutes plus of action in my movie. At the end, I'm like, I'm going to tie up all the loose threads and I'm going to give you a roller coaster. And if you think I'm going right, I'm going left. You think I'm going left, I'm going up. I try to mix it up so you don't even know what's coming, you know?
Yeah.
And flip it. So keep it interesting. But I think it's those elements. It's the talent, it's those actors, a simple story you can hold on to that's kind of clever. And the action has just got to grab you, and you got to be a roller coaster at the end. There's just no two ways about it.
Oh, for sure. And you were talking about a good lead, and you've got Robert in this. Now, I'm not sure how to say his last name. Is it Bronzi?
Well, that's his name is Robert. His name's Robert Kovacs. Robert Bronzi is the actor name. Now he's Bronzi because everybody called him Bronzi in Hungary because he looked like Bronson.
Yes.
So he goes by Robert Bronzi now, but he's a Hungarian actor.
Yeah.
And the only thing he's done is he cuts the mustache to look like that. Everything else is natural. He didn't do any work.
Wow.
And he started out doing Wild West shows in Spain, over on the where Clint Eastwood used to shoot the spaghetti westerns, right?
Yes. Okay.
They would hold Wild West shows like we would do here in Tucson, Arizona or whatever. He'd ride in, you know, and all the Europeans would come over there and watch these shows. He'd ride in and they're going, oh, it's Bronson, you know? And that's how we kind of discovered him. A friend of mine discovered him through that. And then he showed me the picture and I was like, there's no way, this is kind of cool. And I immediately was thinking, you know, I'm making a movie that's an homage to the movies I grew up with and loved. If I put this guy in it, I'm going to transport a big section of the audience to that time era.
Yeah.
They're going to be thinking of Mr. Majestic and Death Wish and Breakheart Pass, you know, and Breakout and the White Buffalo. I mean, just everything, you know, Noon to Midnight. I mean, just Rider on the Rain, all that stuff. You're going to go right back to that era. So Bronzi got me that. And then I tried to not make his looks be an issue. Just, I said, you're Robert Kovacs, you know, Robert Bronzi Kovacs. The audience will say you look like him, but the audience is going to want you, Kovacs, not just the gimmick of, hey, who do I look like? I said, so you just play it like you would play it, you know, and we completely have the face and we discard it. We make a few little in jokes, but we just ride along with it, you know? And I think it works okay. I think it transports people back.
Being a writer as well, did you change any of the story along the way to suit his skills?
Absolutely. I had a script, a really rough draft of the script. And when I met him, my main character was going to come from down south somewhere, Louisiana, Tennessee,
got it,
up to Ohio. Well, I'm like, I'm going to put Robert in this. I'm going to have to change it. So I met him and I'm like, I'm going to rewrite this for a guy coming from Hungary because he has a, you know, he's learning English.
Yeah.
So he's going to have the accent.
Yeah.
No one's going to believe he's from somewhere in the United States, right? Just ain't going to happen. So what it did though is it took my simple story idea and actually made it better. Here's a foreigner coming from Hungary who basically works for a living. He doesn't sign contracts. You do a handshake deal. A deal's a deal.
That's it.
That's it. And he just comes here innocently and says, you know, I'm coming here to collect the debt. Simple. If if the guys would pay him, there'd be no movie. But of course, we live in a different time where, you know, he runs into certain people. But no, and I had Robert read my dialogue and he would like leave words out, you know, or flip words. Hi there, hi, you know, he would change things. So I just rewrote it to how he would say it. And it worked fine. You know, it's like, look, I'm not going to get Robert to say a mountain of dialogue he can't do. I say, how would you truncate it? How would you simplify it? And he would simplify it, and I just wrote it in. And I mean, I gave him lines to say, you know, there's taglines in the movie that I wrote.
I noticed.
But I had to flip some things to make it so that he could say them. And but no, it completely. There's a story element in there with a hammer, and he influenced that. I had it in the script, but he said his name Kovacs means blacksmith in Hungary. And I already had it in the script and I went, wait a minute. Now I can make the hammer thing be a bigger deal. Like it's not just a prop. Like you're going to use it on something, you know? So I made it this story point, which sounds completely ridiculous when he tells people it in the movie, but it's exactly true. So, and I knew how I was going to end the movie. Right.
Okay.
I knew I was going to the beginning and end, and I knew what that last shot was going to be. And so it even just made it so much cooler when he told me his backstory. So yes, big influence, made two big shifts to the story that I think really helped it.
Yeah, I'm glad that you say that, and you have a great director-actor dynamic going. I hope you've locked him into another movie or a sequel.
Yeah, we got three movie deal.
Oh, awesome.
We met in the bar, had some whiskey and some cigars, and we shook hands and said, we'll do 3 pictures.
Oh, mate, that's awesome. I'm really glad to hear that. In your own words, why should people watch this movie? Because, you know, it might not appeal to everyone at first, but in your own words, what do you think? And there's so much to choose from when, you know, clicking on so many streaming services now, which I'm happy that movies are getting out there, but you've just got so much choice. Why should they choose your movie?
You know, and that's the thing. I mean, back in the day, you know, movies would come out every other month, right? You know, today you have a million choices. There's so much noise. So I tell people, look, you can go get movies about technology. You can watch superhero movies. You can see billions of special effects and all that stuff. If you want a simple story that you can completely understand, that you will agree with, that we've lost the human touch. We're too reliant on, you know, cell phones and contracts and lawyers and, you know, rules. Throw all that away. Your life's too cluttered. See this movie, get back to the basics. Forget about all that other stuff and you'll enjoy the movie better that way. And it'll take you back in time to where simple story, simple movie, and a roller coaster ride, you know, and we're not solving the climate crisis. We're not preaching to anybody about anything.
Yeah.
All we're saying is don't get divided by what's going on in the world. Let's sit down. We can all agree to one thing. There are bad people and there are good people.
Yeah.
Good people might be a little bad too, but they're not as bad as the bads. So it's that simple. You know, I think people will have a good time. I say, get out the beer, the whiskey, the pizza, the hamburgers. You can cook a steak, but I recommend a hamburger or a hot dog or, you know what I mean? Make it a simple thing and you'll enjoy the movie. Have about 5 or 6 beers or a couple of pints. You're going to love
it. You mentioned the Shawshank prison before. Is that an actual movie prison or is only a part of it where you film? Is it stand empty or is it used?
Yeah, it's actually called the Ohio State Reformatory. It's a real prison. It's a turn of the century prison. And it closed down shortly after Shawshank filmed there back in early 90s. And what happened was a preservation society took it over because it was falling apart. And they got donations and they run tours every day. They do a haunt there. You know, we have big haunts here in October. They have one of the best haunts in the country there because it's phenomenal.
Oh, I'd love to go.
And they do rock concerts. They had 100,000 people there 2 months ago to see all the big bands. They do ghost. You can go there and pay a little money and do a ghost haunt. You can spend the night in the jail cells. It's a real attraction and it gets a lot of tourists now. So they take all the money and they keep cleaning it up and renovating and preservation.
Right.
And I know the people that run it. So I live close by. I drive by it all the time. I'm like, I got to use that prison in a movie. It's a $50 million movie set, you know? And I got it for a little less than 50 million. So,
that's
but
good.
they have a full schedule that's really hard to get in. And I had like a window a week here and I had a week there, like months apart. That's all they could give me. So that worked for me because my shoot started. I had to stop and start.
That's right. Yeah.
But no, it's a real place. And if you ever make it to Mansfield, Ohio, you have to go see it. It's a great place.
Well, once the world gets back to normal, I intend on coming over to the US because I've got journalist colleagues over there and film festivals I can't make at the moment. So I've got to get there and I'll visit because that's a great place, Arizona.
Yeah, well, you know, come on out. We'll take you around. We'll show you the place. It's a good spot, and there's a lot of other cool stuff too. But yeah, the prison's it's a destination.
Our final question, and I can't believe you mentioned Christmas movies before. I've got a soft spot for Christmas movies. Can't believe I'm saying that in a Death Block 13 interview. But what out of your previous movies, and you've worked on so many, either producing or writing, directing, and so forth. What stands out for you? Any previous movies that you really enjoyed working on or really happy how they turned out? Which ones?
Well, I won't mention my movies. I'll go to some of the other ones I worked on for, you know, in capacities.
Sure.
I started my career in special effects, practical effects, squibs, bullet hits, makeup effects, miniatures, all practical. Before I moved into writing, directing, and producing and doing my own stuff. So 2 movies, I'll mention only 2. There's a lot, but I'll mention Evil Dead 3, Army of Darkness.
Classic.
And Hard Target with Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Yeah, another good movie. It holds up.
And I did special effects on both those. On Hard Target, I was on the effects crew doing pyrotechnics. So every day we're in New Orleans, right? Louisiana, New Orleans.
Yep.
They've got the food and the drink, right? We'd get up in the morning. We go to the set and John Woo, who was the director.
Yeah.
We'd go around with colored tape and he'd tell us where he'd want bullet holes and things to blow up. And we'd tape the rooms up. They'd leave and shoot something else and we'd spend hours rigging it all to blow up. They'd come back and shoot it.
Wow.
We did that for like 8 to 10 weeks. So every day we were blowing everything up. And late afternoon, early evening, we went to the bar and we had the best food and drink. Get up in the morning, do the same thing. It was heaven. It was such fun. Army of Darkness, you know, it's Evil Dead. I worked on Evil Dead 2.
Yeah.
Evil Dead 3, Army of Darkness was the one. I mean, that was like, we made mechanical hands and the death coaster where the rotor blades chopping up all the deadites. And I got to rig explosions and do props and rubber swords. again, just iconic stuff that when we were making it, we knew it was special. You just didn't know what, but you just knew something this is cool. This is going to be around for a while, you know? And it was very inspired. Both of those inspired me. Sam Raimi, you know, and John Woo as directors. I would watch them as I did my stuff and I went, they get it, you know?
Yeah.
And they were both really good people to work for. They weren't screamers, you know? And you'd give them 200%. And I thought, that's a good director. You get people to give you 200% and you don't yell at them, you're going to get 200%. You need that one day.
So you didn't have anything to do with Hard Target 2 from a few years
No, I
back.
didn't. I mean, I after Hard Target, I actually went and I was starting to prep my first my movie Mosquito. I started to get the ball rolling for it.
Gotcha.
So I did a couple other things after that, but yeah, it was that and Army of Darkness. And then I went and made my own movie, kind of made the leap.
Well, thanks, Gary.